Their job, their purpose, is to go to the kings of the whole world. Again, we need to be careful not to say, does this mean the whole world or does it mean the Roman Empire, right? And so it probably means the known world, or the world of John's readers. But it's not the kings of the east that we saw with the sixth angel. Instead, it's the other kings, the kings that are allied with the beast. As we saw in a previous chapter, those that Babylon had made commit fornication. Right? Those are the kings that they are going to get so that they can gather together for battle. But who's this battle against? It's not really clear. Is this a battle against God? Or is it a battle against the kings of the east? Right? The water dried up to make way for the kings of the east. So is that where the battle is going to take place? Or is this a cosmic battle between the dragon and God? Or is it both? Because in many ways we've seen how physical realities and spiritualities can look different but be connected in the same kind of events. They are to assemble for battle on the great day of God the Almighty. And so we should ask ourselves, because this is a prominent thought among a lot of people, that there will be a final battle between good and evil at the end of time. Is that what this passage is teaching? Now, what further would suggest the possibility of this kind of grand cataclysmic battle at the end of time is the next phrase, I'm coming like a thief. Because usually when we think of this phrase in the New Testament, what is I am coming like a thief usually connected with? End of time, the second coming. Right? And so we can see how certain people would interpret it that way. But we've also seen in Revelation that Jesus frequently says, I am coming, with it not meaning the second coming. Right? And so looking through the letters to the 7 churches, especially the letter to Ephesus, repent, or I will come and remove your lampstand. Well, the second coming is going to happen whether Ephesus repented or not. Right? And so the coming there doesn't always mean second coming. But coming like a thief, the suggestion is this coming, whether it's some sort of coming to judgment or coming at the end of time, is that it is unexpected. Right? The thief doesn't give you warning. And so always be prepared is the warning to the readers and the hearers of Revelation. And that's especially reflected in the third of the Beatitudes of Revelation. Blessed is the one who stays awake and is clothed, not going about naked and exposed to shame. Is this talking about physical nakedness? Probably not. So what's it talking about? If it doesn't mean physically naked, although that's probably not a good idea either, what? Okay, spiritually. How can you be spiritually naked?
Same way you can be spiritually full and operative.
Yeah, the idea is that, I mean, especially if you think back to the letter to the church at Laodicea, right? And he tells them to get clothing from him. So that they are naked, and they don't have the clothing that comes from Jesus. You know, if you think of back in Galatians chapter 3, where Paul says about As many of you as have been baptized into Christ have clothed yourself with Christ. This idea of spiritual clothing. And so don't compromise. Don't get involved in the things of the dragon and the beast, because it will end up opening up you to shame on the day that God comes to judge. And so a warning there to those that are thinking about compromising. Don't. So a brief little tangent that separates us from the gathering of the people together and the place where they assemble. A place that is assembled try it again. They assembled them at the place that in Hebrew is called, well, it depends on which manuscript you read. And so that will also affect your translation. We say Armageddon. Sometimes it's with the H, Armageddon. Sometimes it's one G and two Ds. Sometimes it's two Gs and one D. Sometimes it's two Gs and two Ds. Right? So there's a lot of manuscript variants here over what this place is, all of which, there's a similarity, but there's slightly different spellings. So, if we take Armageddon and try to figure out what this is talking about, what is this place? This Hebrew word, any of these, would suggest Mount Megiddo. But there is no Mount Megiddo. There was a city and a plain known as Megiddo. And it was prominent throughout the Old Testament. Let's look at a couple of passages. Somebody would get Judges chapter 5, verses 19 through 21. Somebody else gets 2 Kings 9, verse 27. And then finally 2 Chronicles 35, verses 20 to 24. 2 Kings 9:27. So Judges 5, 19 through 21.
The kings came, they fought the kings of Canaan at Tanak by the waters of Megiddo. They got no spoils of silver. From heaven the stars fought, from their courses they fought against Sisera. The torrent Kishon swept them away, the ancient torrent, the torrent Kishon. March on, my soul, with might.
Now the context of chapter 5 there is a song that Deborah, the judge Deborah, sings. Deborah and Barak. 2 Kings 9, verse 27.
I would love to read that, but those names right there, I'll give it a shot.
Go ahead.
When Uzziah, king of Judah, saw what had happened, he fled up to the road to Beth-Hagen, to who chased him, shouting, "Kill him too." They wounded him in his chariot on the way up to near Evelyn.
Yeah.
But he escaped to Megiddo. How do you say that word?
Megiddo.
Megiddo, and died there.
And then 2 Chronicles 35, verses 20 through 24.
After all this, when Josiah had prepared the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, went up to fight at Carchemish on the Euphrates, and Josiah went out to meet him. But he sent envoys to him, saying, "What have we to do with each other, king of Judah? I am not coming against you this day, but against the house with which I am at war. And God has commanded me to hurry. See, supposing God, who is with me, lest he destroy you." Nevertheless, Josiah did not turn away from him, but disguised himself in order to fight with him. He did not listen to the words of Necho from the mouth of God, but came to fight in the plain of Megiddo. And the archers shot King Josiah, and the king said to the servants, "Take me away, for I am badly wounded." So the servants took him out of the chariot and carried him in his second chariot and brought him to Jerusalem, and he died and was buried in the tombs of his fathers. All of Judah and Jerusalem mourned for Josiah.
We can look at other passages that show that at Megiddo, Solomon and Ahab had outposts. Gideon defeated the Midianites near Megiddo, and Saul and Jonathan died near there at the end of 1 Samuel. So what appears to be the unifying strand through all of these events? War. So when John needs a symbol to talk about a great battle, Megiddo fits perfectly. Right? And so Armageddon, coming from Megiddo, well, there's going to be a last-ditch battle. Where's it going to be? It's going to be Megiddo. Right? Out of all the history of the Old Testament. But one of the things that we have to ask is there really even a battle here? Because once they're assembled, the seventh angel pours his bowl into the air. And a loud voice comes out of the temple from the throne. Okay, whose voice is this? God, right? It's, the smoke's still in there, right? So the only one in there is God. And the voice says, "It is done." So they've gathered for battle, but there won't be a battle. Instead, the battle doesn't even get fought because God ends it before it even gets started. The pronouncement of the end of the battle brings about flashes of lightning, rumbling, peals of thunder, a violent earthquake, things we have seen again and again and again, these kind of reminiscence of the Sinai presence, the Sinai theophany. And it was an earthquake that was so terrible it had never been seen on earth. The earthquake also leads to the great city splitting into three parts. And so I think what's meant to be suggested here is, a complete destruction. 3, one of those numbers that's a completeness. Right? And the great city splits into three parts. The cities of the nation fall because God has remembered great Babylon. And so the great city here refers to Babylon, which we'll see after spring break who Babylon is, what that's all about. But God here has remembered the crimes of great Babylon and has given her now the wine cup of his wrath. So we're back to wine again as the means of judgment. Now remember, this is wine unmixed, the fullness. Right? There's no dilution of God's judgment here. Every island fled away, no mountains were to be found. Right? This kind of total destruction that is taking place. Huge hailstones, weighing about 100 pounds, dropped from heaven on people. The largest hailstones in recorded history are between 1 and 3 pounds. And so we're talking about a sizable hailstone.
The translation says about 100 pounds each.
Yeah. And so they come from heaven with quite a bit of force as well. But note, because a lot of people talk about this passage as if it's the end of time, and we can see some of this as well, but it's not completely the end of time because the people continue to curse God and refuse to repent. And so this is not the total destruction of the universe, right? The folding up of what God has made, but instead very symbolic of the total destruction that will fall upon the kingdom of the beast. So a lot of symbolism throughout all of this, but the message is clear. God will bring about the judgment that is just and will deal with those that have persecuted his people. Almost bit my tongue, so that made me think of the darkness. And so we come to the end of the 7 bowls of wrath. And so we have the exam on Thursday. 17, 18, 19, and 20 will kind of bring us to a conclusion with talking about the beast. Right? So we're not completely done with the beast and the dragon. But holding out there for us after spring break is the great promise of the new heavens and the new earth. So while we see a lot of destruction in this book, it resolves into a beautiful depiction of what waits for God's people. So it's a very disturbing book, very disturbing imagery, especially in this section we've been in. But some beautiful things, some encouraging things coming forth in just a few chapters, in just a few weeks. Questions, comments?
Verse 12, at the start of the 6th bowl of wrath,
Yes.
it talks about the bowl being poured out and the water of the Euphrates being dried up. And that got me to thinking about the duration of each of these plagues. Like, isn't this supposed to be blood and not water?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question because what was it? The 3rd bowl was on the rivers and springs of waters. I'm going to appeal to it's apocalyptic, and so it can be paradoxical. But yeah, that's one of the things that I've wondered too. Is like, is it the blood that's dried up, or has it become water again? Because the impression you get is these are coming one right after the other. Where when you look at like the Exodus plagues, it's one and then Pharaoh repents, and then another one comes and Pharaoh repents.
And like we saw with the darkness, people are still suffering from the former plagues.
Yeah. So I think that it's the water. There might still be blood in the narrative.
And you said the exam is this Thursday.
The exam is this Thursday. No, the exam is on 8 through 16.
8 through 16.
Yeah, 17 through 22 is after spring break. So yeah.
And you put up
The study guide's available on Blackboard. Yep. All right.